David Morgan with the Morgan Report in the studios of Investment Pitch in Vancouver, British Columbia. Today is Paul Gill. Paul, good to see you.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on.
Why don't you give us a little bit of background before we go into Lomiko metals and talk the story, but give us some background on yourself.
Yeah, I've been in mining and exploration for about 10 years, and we started off with Norrismont Mining back in 2003 and handed it off to another management team in 2006, which got bought out by Hudbay in 2011, so we had a great run there. Tried to work on silver with a company called Grenville Gold, and didn't quite work out, but we did okay. That's still surviving. And right now we're working on Lomiko metals, which is electric minerals and gold.
Great. Well, let's drill down into Lomiko metals, excuse the pun. This is something to do with a lot of the graphite graphene stories. So why don't you give me the background on why you're so high on Lomiko metals?
Yeah, first of all, I think graphite's been identified as a critical element by both the EU and the US. And that's very significant because they feel this is a future metal that they're going to need in large supply. That's number one. We know that electric vehicles use a considerable amount of graphite, almost 20 times as much graphite in a lithium-ion battery as there is lithium in that situation. And you've got now this new whole industry being created around graphene. It's really just starting, but there's with 12,000 patents on graphene and potentially 7,000 companies that have bought graphene from our partner Graphene Labs. We're in a really good spot to supply graphite for graphene conversion, and also get a good insight into what the future holds with all these new patents.
Great. Actually, I did a white paper on graphene for the Morgan Report subscribers. Why don't you take us down that path a little ways and explain what it is, why it's light, give us the properties of it and why it's so important in today's high-tech world.
Yeah, it gives a real interesting suite of very, I think, interesting properties. Number one, 200 times stronger than steel. Secondly, electrically conductive and thermally conductive, transparent, and also flexible. So you've got something that can flex considerably. It's a hexagon-shaped carbon atoms. So the carbon itself creates a hexagon shape, which is stretchable and doesn't break very easily. So the applications as a coating are fantastic. You can coat it onto aluminum, create superconductive materials from it. Coat it on copper wire, in fact, create something that's similar to glass fiber optics. So, and then you look at the potential for water filtration. Lockheed Martin has a new patent on this particular substance that will allow it to completely filter seawater into fresh water. So the kinds of applications are endless. It's sort of like the situation of plastic coming onto the scene in the 60s, when you have everything's made out of glass, and all of a sudden we changed over to plastic. I think that's what we're seeing with this material, and it's just starting to hit actual consumer products. There's a graphene tennis racket now, and there's a company called Vorbeck Materials, which is using graphene in a printable GPS locator. So you print this stuff on your clothes, on your kids, on whoever, and it's a GPS device. So it's really a fascinating field.
Absolutely. I remember when I did the white paper, it reminded me of some of the properties of silver. I mean, the conductivity of it is extremely high, as you said. So let's talk about Lomiko further. You're actually going to have some big plans for 2015. Why don't you go through those?
Yeah, we did a key strategic alliance with a group called Graphene Labs, which are two material scientists out of Calverton, New York, and they actually sell graphene to about 7,000 customers, and most of those customers hold a good portion of the 10,000 patents. So we have a really good view of what's going on in the field. So what we did is we said we wanted to get involved in the vertical of graphene and look at converting graphite from the ground in Quebec, which is large flake graphite high carbon purity into graphene, and we've completed that in 2013. And now we're going to the next step of actually investing in companies. The key patent in the field, I believe, is the ability to coat graphene onto a 3D printer. Because of its many properties, it's very difficult to just manufacture a sheet of graphene and then slice it up and turn it into something you want to have an end product in. The best way is to take a disruptive material and apply it with a disruptive way of manufacturing. And that's the beauty of the situation, that graphene cannot function and put all these wonderful properties in place unless you have a 3D printer that can print it in exactly the shape you want it in. So if you want a flashlight, you can print a complete flashlight, the cover as well as the electrical connections within it. And that makes for a very fascinating situation. Printing a cell phone becomes possible with graphene.
So take me into it a little further as an investor. I'm invested in Lomiko metals, and what happens with my investment going out, say, and I know we're forward-looking statement, you give whatever caveat you want, but what am I buying, what am I getting, what am I looking toward? I mean, obviously you're a leader, obviously you're very connected in the industry, you're vertically integrating, but what would I want to see happen as an investor in a company?
Yeah, I think we can look back a little bit and see what's happened. In fact, in 2014, we invested in Graphene 3D Lab. We put $350,000 up into that company, bought about 10% of it. It in fact IPO'd at $1 or so, and it's gone to $2.50 and came back to $1. So we can see that much value being created. That $350,000 investment's now worth $4.4 million for Lomiko. We plan to continue that and bring more value to the table for our shareholders, IPOing more and more of these graphene companies, taking private companies, investing in them pre-IPO, and then telling the world about the wonderful products they have. And the second company that we've already started working on is called Graphene Energy Storage Devices, which is a fascinating new way of storing energy through a supercapacitor that has graphene as a primary element in it. So we think that will help quick charge electric vehicles and prevent the range anxiety problems we have. In fact, keep the charge for over 900 kilometers, which gives it the equivalent of a tank of gas at least. So that's going to make a big difference to electric vehicles. So we're working on those kinds of solutions, I think, for 3 or 4 years down the road.
Very good. Now let's talk on the financial side a little bit. What's the share structure? Is it tightly held? How much does management own? Where it's listed? Let's go through that. So what's the market cap on the company?
Market cap is about 8 million to 8.5 million right now. Not looking at the market, it's open today.
Okay.
But 137 million shares out. We have 21% insider interest, and there's a large group of funds that we've done financings with. We raised 5.5 million in 2014, and they continue to participate in the company. So we've got a good sort of balance of institutional, lots of retail people have bought in the open market, and we enjoy a lot of volume and support in that way. So I think that what we're looking at is, as we add more and more value to the bottom line, right now, I mean, looking at our GGG shares and the cash in the bank, we're worth exactly 8 million plus. So we're trading at cash value or liquidation value. So I think as we add more and more of these tech companies and get them to the IPO stage, we're going to put more on that bottom line, and people are going to start noticing.
Very good. I think we've looked at it, you know, from the technology, from the management, from the share structure. It's an exciting story, especially, you know, it's related to mining in a way because you have to get the raw material on the ground, but yet it's very high tech at the same time, and almost visionary with what's going on in the electric car market. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that our viewers need to know about?
Yeah, I think that you know, the property itself, we've also got a very particular strategy related to the properties in Quebec. We've got graphite properties there that are close to Imerys, carbon and graphite. And our bet is that Imerys is probably one of the key groups that's going to supply Tesla and other factories. It's a $1 billion company. It's located in Quebec. It has a very low cost structure for development, but the only Achilles heel they have is they're running out of ore. So if we are developing properties right beside that, it makes for a very compelling argument for Lomiko to perhaps supply to that mill.
Very good. And assuming that's the case, you're going to keep it whole. What would be the exit strategy? Would you let them buy you out? Would you maintain the property yourself? Would there be something halfway between?
Our approach to the properties is that we'll develop them as far as we can, but we're looking specifically for very high grade, low footprint situations that have high carbon content. We want to make sure that we can supply our graphene partners with their material. But after that, the secondary and tertiary markets for graphite itself, we're certainly at a point where we can't really make any calls on that. We're open to the situation when it comes.
Okay, so basically we're going to look at market conditions at the time and
yes,
what the flow rates are, not only cash-wise in the company, I guess, but also what they are for the people you're supplying it currently.
Yeah, and the market may change. Graphite market is not overly demand-driven right now. It should be in the next few years, given that even if Tesla starts building that gigafactory, they'll draw about 120,000 tons of material out of the system, whether it be from synthetic or from regular natural flake graphite. It's going to come out of the system. It's got to be replaced. So there's a natural, I think, tendency to see graphite prices trending upwards in the next 3 or 4 years.
Very good. Yeah. Well, Paul, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for bringing us back up to speed on Lomiko Metals and the graphene graphite story. It's fascinating.
Thanks, and it's only going to get better.